Marxism. Today, I'm going to go ahead and make a debate about Marxism. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the pros, which are saying Marxism is great and it should be used throughout the world, and the cons will be against Marxism and why shouldn't it. Mainly in this part, we're just going to go ahead and focus on the egalitarian distribution of wealth, basically meaning we should share money around everyone based on how much money they should have. But before we can even start all that, what is Marxism? Now, in a sense here, Marxism is the philosophy that was created by this German philosopher named Karl Marx. And he basically went ahead and created something called communism, which is basically where Marxism, which is basically takes its origins from Marxism. But mainly all of this came from a different place. As you can see, Marxism has evolved into different branches of versions of Marxism throughout the centuries. The most failing ones and disappointing ones being the Soviet oppression, as well as other things as well too. But the core beliefs of Marxism have more or less never changed a lot. In theory, it basically means you go ahead and you harp along failures of certain past attempts, and you go ahead and you put them in practice. Go ahead and realize that these things aren't real. Like the past, you learn from the past. That's basically what Marxism here means. However, throughout the world, there are simply many alternative and more there are many alternative and more distinctive, as well as, well, a bit more sensible alternatives to Marxism as well too, such as the egalitarian distribution of wealth, as I mentioned. But this debate will mainly be talking about for and against Marxism. In a sense, this is basically what capitalism is. Mainly, this is all a class struggle. All the classes are going ahead and struggling against each other with different power struggles as well too. All the workers, the industrial workers, they're the ones who feed all the people up there, and they're probably the ones who actually endorse Marxism the most because, well, pretty much everyone on above them are bosses and they're all jerks. There's too much class struggle, and so Marxism, if this actually goes ahead and comes into effect, will go ahead and abolish this class system as well too, so that there will be no one fooling you. There will be no one. Well, of course there'll be someone ruling you, but there will also be no one who would be eating for you. You be the eaters as well as the feeders. You would also technically be the foolers as well too, but then again, you could also be the shooters. But only certain people will be shooters, mainly because not everyone can be in the army. If everyone was in the army, who'd be the feeders? But when you go for the cons, you learn a little bit as well too. All this talk about abolition of the state, abolition of the class system, it's all unrealistic. You actually can't do it in reality, mainly because class systems is just a way of life. People will be more powerful than other people. That's just how humans work. And because that's how humans have been working for centuries, that's just not going to go away in like 1 year or so. It's just going to stay there for a while, and we may be misguided in reality as well too. Our expectations may be very high, but the reality of it happening is probably all the way to here. There will always be people who need to rule, mainly because the people who feed you and the people who eat you and the people who shoot at you are probably terrible at rulers, and also we fool you. They have a better chance of being rulers, but they are foolers. So there are certain people who need to be rulers. If you ever read Machiavelli's The Prince, you would know what I mean. Instead, we should go ahead and instead of abolishing it, we should go ahead abolish the system, and instead of abolishing it, we should go ahead and redistribute the wealth among people, so that the rulers will give a lot of wealth towards the feeders, the foolers will give some wealth to the eaters, but then all the way here, and the shooters, well, I'm pretty sure they just stay the same. Now back to the pros. The pros for Marxism is that Marxism, in our society, there is too much inequality among us. There are too many people who have too much money while others are barely living on as well too. In fact, the entire world produces enough food to feed 10 billion people. But our world only has 8 billion people. So where did all that go? So where does the excess food all go? Well, maybe that excess food goes on the tables of the rich people. And those rich people don't even eat all the food. They waste it. So maybe we shouldn't even be able to waste this food as well too. There's too much inequality in this world, and so we should go ahead and abolish this inequality. We should go ahead and abolish this inequality and just give everyone enough to live on. No money required, no buying required. And now for the cons. Now the cons are, maybe instead of all this, we should go ahead and make ownership of certain items, such as private houses and potentially even private cars, go ahead and make that a bit transparent. Instead of one person owning it, maybe a lot of people should just go ahead and use the same one at the same time. Maybe lots of people should live in the same residential home, just alternating between residential homes at times as well too. People are naturally greedy, and so we should probably all go ahead and realize that that's the case no matter what. So we should always go ahead and share, and we wouldn't want all of it to ourselves. We might really just want to have the entire world to ourselves, except we have some people going ahead and making food and for us and only for us. Problem is, those people also need food, and in fact, that's the mindset that most rulers in the ancient times would have used. They wanted a bunch of money so that they could have it for themselves, and they didn't give much towards their subordinates, which is why they got very easily overthrown, because they were underpaying their closest people. So we should go ahead and redistribute the wealth, and as we redistribute the wealth, we should also redistribute items. And now we should go ahead and talk about the market. Now, in other places, Marxism goes ahead and tells us that the market is too unequal. There's too many people, there's too many bought goods. In fact, this is my own personal experience. As I go ahead and see cereal, the amount of cereal actually goes ahead and drops, but the price of cereal, that goes up and up. We have less materials in the world, but more people want it. So, of course, demand goes higher up and up. There's an unequal market. Not everyone can go to the market and afford the same things. This person might be able to afford the slushy, and this one maybe, and these people may be able to afford like all the items here, or probably even here. But then again, not all of them can go ahead and buy things. All this is illegal because they go ahead and destroy other people's livelihoods as well too. People who can't buy this, unfortunately, will have to survive with what they have, which is already barely enough. And why this random piece of paper, this random green piece of paper, the greatest amount of currency, the most valuable thing in our lives? Well, mainly because we all decided that this is the most valuable thing in our lives. This was probably the hardest thing to ever do in the entire of humanity, that some worthless piece of paper turns into, well, the most valuable thing in the world. But we all agreed to it, and then ever since all of humans agreed to it, we decided to agree to teach all humans that this is worth something as well too. And what do the cons say about this? Well, the cons, the egalitarian distributors, say that if people really want items, they would actually go ahead and be willing to pay. They will be willing to work hard for it, they're willing to pay for it, and so they should also be rewarded with a good paycheck. If they want something that badly, well, they'd be willing to pay for it. And if they don't want something that badly, well, I guess they wouldn't pay for it. Another thing, and the last point about the pros for Marxism is that no one should actually go ahead and deserve items given out in the capitalist system. You think all that education, and all the police work and the firefighter work, you think all that comes cheap? No, it's paid by your taxes. And so because it's paid by those taxes, some people actually are better off than others. There's a birthright. And some people go ahead and think that this is a birthright. Well, no, it shouldn't. No one should deserve things that are given out for free when they can't even pay for it. But then again, they should be able to do it as well too. And so what do the cons say? Well, the cons basically say that, well, your birth attributes, they're what makes you unique. They're what makes you a person. And so, of course, they give you a birthright as well, too. But it's because of that birthright that you use it to your advantage, so that you go higher up in the other people. Not using your birthright as like raw power, but use it to charge up your memory power. Use it to charge up your memory power so you can go ahead and store it, and use the birthright as a power source, and then use this to go ahead and make others think about it as well, too. They're going to give you things because you're smart, and maybe your birthright went ahead and gave you some things as well too. But birthright is what makes you unique. Your birth and the characteristics of you is what makes you you. And so because you have a certain birthright, that doesn't mean that you should be banned from using a certain service. And those are all the 4 points on each of the sides of Marxism and egalitarian money distribution. And so that is the end of Marxism's episode. Now I haven't given you a result mainly because it isn't my decision to make this as well too. You guys can go ahead and duke this out in the comments as well. But the possible motions that could actually happen is that they could just say Marxism is one of the best philosophies in the world, and that they could just go ahead and do it, something on those lines, except probably less likely than that, or that Marxism isn't that good, and that probably egalitarian money distribution is better. Or they could just say something Marxist, like the House believes that the workers of the world should unite, something like that. And that is potentially the end of this episode, for real this time. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I hope to see you guys soon. And so until next time, Schnapp, peace. Bye bye. Note, I encourage you to use the comment section, if they're on, to go ahead and debate about this topic and other topics as well too.